Hello, this is Robert Rodriguez, and I'm presenting to you the 10-minute film school. It's something that I would show at guerrilla filmmaking seminars at film festivals. You know, people ask me, Mariachi, did you really make that for $7,000? How did you do that? And it's just so hard to sit there and try and explain it. It's much easier to show raw footage from the movie, scenes, what they looked like before they were edited, so you can see exactly how to put a movie together very inexpensively by yourself if need be. First of all, I shot this movie silent. What that allowed me to do actually was save a lot of film because I didn't have any film slates. I didn't have any sync slates. In fact, the only indication we had to put on the roll at all was at the head of it to show what roll we were on. And this is roll 15. You can see I just had the actors hold their fingers up. After that, there's no slates. Let me jump right to the cool part. This is the scene that everyone thinks cost a lot of money. People always ask me, how did you do the bus sequence, for instance, on such a small budget and with no crew or stunt people or anything? So actually, if you just break it down, you see it's not that difficult at all. In fact, it's actually kind of cool. So what you're going to be looking at here is the actual raw footage of this scene and the order it was shot. There's no slates. Every time you see a flash frame, that's me starting or stopping the camera. You'll see that this is everything that I shot for this sequence, and it explains why the movie was so inexpensive, because I only shot 25 rolls of film for the entire movie. Well, let me just show you the raw footage and you can get a sense of how that could be possible. Here we go. This is my actor Carlos. He's going to run up the stairs and throw his guitar case, but you'll see that he misses in this first take. But that's all right, because the first part of it was fine. Him running up the stairs was good. I'm not going to redo the whole take. That's a waste of film. What I'll do is just punch in a little bit closer, have him toss it again, and intercut the two shots so it looks like I have two cameras running at the same time. In fact, anytime he made any progress in his little journey through this scene, I would change the camera angle, change the position, because the feeling I wanted from the movie was that I did have a lot of time and money and cameras, and so I didn't shoot anything in a master. So basically, I'm just cutting in the camera. Since I'm also the editor of the movie, I'm just making my editing decisions as I go along, not shooting anything extra. Every time you see that flash frame again, that's me just stopping filming or starting to shoot again. I would call action, then I would start shooting. Now these pieces here look very short and very small, but when you see the finished cut, it's not short at all. It's plenty of, I'm only using a few frames because it's an action sequence, so you only need a very small amount of film. That one cable that's tied around the pole right there, we put up, fastened it from that pole to a telephone pole across the street. And then what he does is slide across this with a homemade pulley device that we had a local blacksmith make us for $12 US. We tested it in Carlos's backyard. Action! Now you recognize this guy here. He's one of the bad guys in the movie. Instead of having a film crew, I would just use my actors. I mean, they're just standing around anyway, so he was helping me by pulling me in the wheelchair as I got this shot of Carlos going overhead. We're actually just waiting for our bus to arrive. Here's our bus. What I did was I got all the way down the street with a zoom lens so that I could compact the action slowly by pushing in as he went down the line, making it look like the bus was much closer to him than it was. I also undercranked so that it would look a little faster. So he kicked the bus, swings over to his mark on top of the truck, and he doesn't fall on the bus. I get that separately from inside the bus. He's already on the hood. He just hops down on front and shuffles around. And this is something I had forgotten about. I got myself in the shot by accident. You see me in the rear view strip there in the bus. There's my camera wrapped in a t-shirt, and there's me back there. You see, it's almost like shooting documentary style. It's just you with a handheld camera running around grabbing all your little pieces. So here we shoot it again from the outside, and he's just shuffling around, we're not going very fast at all, making it look like there's a lot of danger involved. That truck right there that he runs onto actually is, you notice that the bad guys drive it around in the movie. That's Carlos's truck. All my camera, it's our production truck. All my camera equipment's in the back. It followed us around everywhere and shows up quite a few times in the movie. It's just an all-purpose shooting vehicle. Okay, so here's the truck sequence edited. Now, what you're looking at here is not the DVD copy that you have. This is my actual original $7,000 videotape that first went out to studios, the one that Columbia bought. People always ask, well, before the film was blown up and you first got it shown, what did it look like? Was it just unwatchable? Did Columbia come in and fix it all up? And actually, this is it right here. I'd cut offline on 3/4 inch, did all my cutting straight from my original tape that came off the original negative, so it looks much cleaner than what you even have on the DVD. because by the time Columbia bought it and blew it up to 35 millimeter and distributed it on film, it was much more degraded. The film negative had been handled so much that it was really worn out. I couldn't even use that negative to make a good video transfer for this DVD. Okay, this is how you get 5 shots in one take. Basically, I shoot his first line of dialogue here in the wide, then I zoom in for his second line, which is a little more threatening, zoom back out to get this wide shot of the guitar case going up. And I'm doing this because I wanted to make it look like I've shot this all day with different lens sizes. I go back to a medium close-up and then punch in for a tighter shot for his last big threat, then whip back out again for him opening the case. Now, I know those zooms are very jarring, but they're basically just repositions. I always plan to cut away to the other guy's reaction during the zoom. Basically, I'm just shooting as an editor, getting my coverage that I need, but doing it all in one take, rather than, I'm never going to use that threat in a wide. So I'll go ahead and get it in a close-up, and I've made the decision. I've made the editing decision as I've shot it. So I can't change my mind later because it's shot only one way. I only did one take of this. But it's fine. You find that you can deal with anything that you've done. You can make just about anything work. You just make the decision now, save all that time and money, and not make the decision later. And if you're the editor, you can make those decisions, and they work out fine. That was a real gun, by the way, and so are these two up front here. See, this guy has a real gun, but the two in the back, those are water pistols. See the extra big water cartridge there sticking out. We borrowed these guns from the cops. Carlos, he's from this town, so we went to the cops and said, you know what, we'd like to borrow a couple of your machine guns if you would allow us to. We're going to put blanks in them, and you can lend us one of your cops to watch us. We're only going to use them for a few minutes at a time. The only problem with having a real gun is that when you put a blank in it, it would jam like this. That's it. That's all it would give us. So what I would have to do in order to have a machine gun sequence is that I would have to shoot the barrel firing once from 4 different angles, like this. Then I would get a shot of the bad guys getting squibbed, so I could put a machine gun sound over it and make it seem like there was continuous fire going on. Okay, see the squib didn't fire in that take, right here. There it goes. It's just a weightlifting belt, a condom full of homemade blood made of food coloring and corn syrup. So this guy had 2 squibs on. We got these squibs from an effects guy we knew in Mexico, and we tested them out on Carlos.
This one hurt a lot.
They gave us white ones and yellow ones. One was a body squib and one was a ground squib. We didn't know which was which, so we had to test it.
Was that a white one or a yellow one?
Okay, here's the sequence edited with that squib effect and with that machine gun effect. What I did was I double cut the barrel fire, and here it comes right now. Double cut, and then have the machine gun sound going over the cuts to give the illusion that there's machine gun fire going on. See, these are things you take for granted on a real movie set by having movie prop guns. Instead of spending the money and renting one, we just creatively thought of a way to get around it. I wanted to show you my sound setup. This is actually a videotape I shot during production. This is Juan Suarez. He's a local exterminator who's a musician on the side, and he wrote this song for our movie. I'm recording it with my sound setup, which is my Marantz tape recorder and my Radio Shack microphone right there. That's me actually holding the mic up. I'm taping the sound. This is the actual song that's used in the movie, in the actual recording, and videotaping it at the same time so that Carlos can watch his finger movements. And I mean, as you can hear, this musician's voice is much deeper than Carlos's. So what I did was I used my tape recorder, had a pitch control. I pitched it up so it matched more my actor's voice. We just did it on the fly. He wrote us a song in a couple of days and came back, we recorded it, and then we lip-synced to it. Basically, this is also how I recorded the sound for the movie. I wanted to get all the dialogue and sound effects right there on the set and not just loop it in later because that sounds really canned. So after I'd shoot a scene, I would put the camera away, have everyone repeat their dialogue and their action, and would get everything from sound effects and dialogue so that I could cut it in later and sync it by hand. So even him splashing the water on his face right here, I went ahead and got on location. See, it's almost a perfect match. Almost. Close enough. Here's how I did the dialogue. I would film it, then I would record the sound after the take. She would be speaking in her own natural rhythm, and there isn't a lot of dialogue in the movie, so I was able to sync most of it up.
¿Quién eres? ¿Qué tienes aquí?
But where it absolutely would not sync up, like right here,
¿Armas? ¿Pistolas? ¿Navajas?
I knew that's where I would cut away in the editing. The camera I borrowed, it had 2 great lenses on it. One was a zoom lens, which I used all the time for dialogue. And then it had a 5.7 millimeter canoptic lens, which is a lens that's so wide it doesn't need any focusing. It is a little wide. I mean, things look a little goofy, but I didn't even have to look through the eyepiece half the time. I mean, if I was doing like an action sequence like this of him jumping over, I couldn't keep my eye on the eyepiece. I would just follow his feet down with the camera, and I would know that it's in frame because the lens is so wide. The local newscasters in town were very critical of everything that went on. We grabbed this guy and made him the bartender, and this other guy, we made him the hotel clerk. I kept them involved in the picture, and it made it easier for us to run down the street with guns, have no one complain. Here's a good example of how cheap I was on this movie, actually. Case here, you see the very visible scar on the lid right there in the center. This is the same case that the Mariachi carries around. I didn't even bother to get two different cases because I didn't have any money for it. This isn't even a good case. I mean, it's a little cardboard case. You can see that he's got the guitar in there. It's supposed to be the weapons. What I actually do is cut to this other case. It's a much heavier case, but it doesn't have a handle, and the top of the lid is wood colored because the black material was pulled off. And I was too cheap to paint it black, so I would just cut away from it. Instead of showing that lid, I would just cut away because I was cheap. I was too cheap to even buy a can of black paint. But if you want to make a movie for a really low budget, you can't spend on anything. You have to refuse to spend. I mean, that's just basically how you do it. You refuse to spend on anything. You start spending a little bit. You start that money hose going, and you just can't stop it. Think of a creative way to get around your problem and keep your money in your pocket. One question people have a lot is, how did you light the movie by yourself and with how many lights? And I actually only had 2 lights. In fact, they weren't really movie lights. They're those work lamps that you get at hardware stores, the ones with the little clip-on bottoms and the aluminum domes. I have a 200-watt light bulb inside of it that's balanced for indoor film, and then a sheet of diffusion over it to make it softer. Since the light source is so small, I have to put it really, really close to the actors, right out of camera frame. I had 2 of these lights. So one of them would be on the right side, you can tell on his face, creating a little bit of shadow, and the other one would be on the left side, making a little bit of edge, bouncing off a sheet of styrofoam. Here you can see with her, the light on the right is creating that sort of side light effect, and then when she turns right into the second light, which is also set up sort of kind of like a side light, making that shadow across her face. That third light behind her, you see, is just the sun coming through some stained glass. Since we shot these scenes fairly quickly, we didn't have to worry about the sun changing position on us. When you look at the bar sequences, you'll notice that I never do the same lighting setup twice. Every time you go in there, there's absolutely no lighting continuity because I was trying to learn. I wanted to learn what the best lighting would be. So every time I was in that bar, I would light it differently. This scene, for instance, there's the one light on his face. The sun is going down in the background. That's why it's that blue color, because the film is balanced for indoor. Any sunlight coming in is going to turn blue. And you notice at the bottom of his chin, there's a slight edge light. That's because the light is on the floor, creating that sort of very slight edge along his chin and up over his hair. For the bad guys, I did something different. I put a red light on him. So I have my one light on the right side on his face, and the second light kicking from behind with a red gel over it. You notice outside that it's a little brighter outside. We shot this on a different day. In this scene, I did something completely different because this was the last scene we shot, and it was at night. It was like 3 in the morning, so there's no light coming in from outside. So what I had to do was put the light in the back on the wall, going through that rail back there to make those patterns on the wall. And my second light is right here on the right, very side light, making half his face go into shadow. It's right out of the camera frame, so it's really close, making a very, very soft light. You know what? I think our 10 minutes are up. But basically, I just want to, if you're interested in making a movie, go make one, but make it cheap. Make it dirt cheap. Refuse to spend any money and see how much you can do with your creativity. So many people come up to me and tell me, oh yeah, I made this movie. We got it in for under, $200,000, but our investors are, we don't know what we're going to do with it. And it's such a big production when you make a big production out of it. Don't. You can have a lot of fun and do some really cool stuff with just, in your backyard with a few toys. And that's it. Good luck.